I have Nathan back on the podcast, round 2, second time guest. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. It's so fun to be on the show again, and I'm just so honored to be here.
I know, it's so fun. I always love having conversations with you. And yeah, I figured I'm like, we have to have him back on and have another conversation because I feel like there's a million topics we could talk about.
Totally.
Last time, I believe we talked about like video marketing. And I remember, and then this time we're going to talk a little bit about like new branding and marketing strategies for 2024 and just like what this looks like. Cause I feel like the industry as a whole is kind of shifting a little bit and just like things that didn't work before or like things that did work before aren't going to work moving forward and just talk about like branding and marketing and changes and all of that stuff. So I know you are we were talking about branding a little bit before, but like, I feel like you're so good at branding and you're good at also intermixing your personal branding and just like your personal life and like tying the two together. For some crazy reason, I feel like that's hard to do. Like it's hard to like, especially for some people like, oh, I know I like this, but how do I like mesh the two together and all that stuff? So I just think you're so amazing. So if there's anything like what are some maybe first steps or basics that someone can kind of do to hone in on their brand and then like to just really feel in alignment with it too?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I could go so many different directions with this. I think I'm going to have to start at what's in your head with all of that, because I think so many people think that sharing things personally in order to align them with maybe your more professional brand is a very difficult task to do. And while I do think there is difficulty in it, I don't think that the merging of the two or the sharing of the two simultaneously is necessarily that hard of a task. I think a lot of it comes down to what we think is okay to share, or what we feel like we have permission from society or from like internet culture to share. And so I think what has really helped me is instead of just thinking of my brand as what I do professionally and the photos I take and the people I help, I think of my brand as just the multidimensional, multifaceted person of me, right? And so that's going to encompass who I am in my home life. That's going to encompass, you know, my hobbies, my interests. That's going to encompass, yes, my work, and yes, the art that I like to produce. That's going to encompass things like, you know, whether it's like my friends or my family or my faith or what I do in the weekends or like, I don't know, like what I like to eat, like my dog, like anything like that. Because at the end of the day, we have to remember that for those of us that are running a brand that hinges on our personal touch and like the personality and our character and all these types of things, the multifaceted human part of that is just so important for people to connect with us. So I think it really isn't so much that it's like so hard to bring those two together. I think that sometimes we feel weird doing it, but it just doesn't have to be all that weird. Like I feel like I will share, you know, one day on my podcast, something that is so businessy and like marketing related. And then the next week, I feel like I will share something that is completely personal. And then maybe the next week I'll share something that like puts those two together or something like that. Or on my Instagram story, the same thing. I will be like promoting a product of mine or a coaching program of mine. And I'll be like mid-launch week. And I'll also be talking about like what my dog is doing or something like that. And I think some people are like, oh, but don't do that. You're messing up your brand or whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like I am my brand. So there's really nothing that I can share that's like off limits in a way, unless I say it's off limits. And there are certain things that I'm like, yeah, I don't talk about this or I don't talk about this because I don't really want to. But to me, I think you are your brand and you are your own niche in so many perspectives. And so I don't think it's always that hard. I think it's that sometimes we just don't feel like we have the permission to do that. Does that make sense?
No, it makes complete sense. And I think almost like it probably comes so natural to you to do that you're like, yeah, it's not that hard. But for some reason, sometimes, because you're so right, like you are your brand, like you can't mess it up. Like you just talk about what you want to talk about. But like for some reason, it's like, I don't know, sometimes it's hard to be like, oh, well, what do I share of my personal life?
Sure.
I heard somewhere, and I don't know who's I heard it from or whatever, but they said we try to separate our business and our personal life so much sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that like actually you should intermix them, not in like a breaking boundaries way, but just like
Sure.
intermix your business with your, you know, personal life and your family, and intermix your family with your business. And like,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably like, that was just what came to my mind as you were speaking, of
Yeah.
just, you can think about like just intermixing them. It just seems so easy, but for some reason, sometimes it's hard for people.
It's
Like,
so, yeah, I mean, it totally can be. I think a lot of times the barometer or whatever of what I use of, is this something that is going to be, I don't want to say share worthy, but I guess thinking to myself, is this something that I should share? Is, I think if someone else shared something similar, I guess, would I be interested in hearing about that? And
sure.
I have a pretty low standard of what I think that like should be shared and interested in, because I'm like, I feel like so much should be. So if I'm on someone's, let's say like Instagram story or something, and they are sharing a little bit about just what they're doing over the weekend, or they're sharing about what type of meals they meal prep for the week, or if they share about like their morning routine or something, the average person who is thinking about doing that for themselves and sharing that for themselves, they might be like, no one cares. Why would anyone care about this? But me as the viewer, I mean, I love seeing that kind of stuff. I think it's very, very intriguing, and it connects me to them, and it makes them human in my eyes. And I'm just like, I love this. You know what I mean? Especially if I've been following them for a while and I've loved the content they put out. And then I'm like, I want to know who the person is behind all of this. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's why we have like these random things like Vogue doing like 73 questions in like a celebrity's house, or that's why we do, like when someone's like running for political office, they'll do some sort of behind the scenes look at their life or whatever. That's why I'm trying to think of other things like documentaries about famous people or something, and they kind of get like that behind the scenes footage, and we're also interested in it because it makes them human, and I think at the end of the day, we all just want to connect with another human. And so there's so much branding opportunity in those spaces. We just sometimes think they're not curated enough or clean enough to share.
That's so interesting you say that, because I completely agree. It's like we're programmed to think all needs to be curated or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think like what you were saying with the Vogue 73 questions or whatever. So I think that's also, when you look at like TikTok, why people feel so much more connected to these like just normal people versus like
Mm-hmm.
celebrities. Like, we're more
Totally.
interested in these new creators that are just living their life, and we want to know what
Yeah,
they ate for lunch. Like, I'm tuning in to
exactly.
see what they ate for lunch. Why? I don't
Exactly.
know. I'm here for them. I like them.
Mm-hmm.
Versus
It's
like,
so true.
yeah, we're just more interested in that even over celebrities. And so that just goes to show exactly what you're saying. Like, the personal branding is just over empowering, like all of
Mm-hmm.
that.
So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. And so I also hear a lot of people say, like, oh, I don't feel aligned with my brand. Like, I want to rebrand. I
Mm.
don't feel aligned with it. Like, what do you suggest for people who might feel like that? Like, what are some steps that maybe they do know the direction they want to go? Maybe they don't know the direction. I don't know. Does that make sense or
Totally
anything
makes
for
sense.
you?
I think it depends on what they're asking. So if someone's asking, I don't feel aligned to my maybe more personal side of my brand,
Mhm.
I think that is going to be an issue where you fundamentally aren't showing up as yourself, whatever that is.
Mhm.
Maybe you're not showing like headshots, like that's something as simple as like headshots of yourself that feel like you, and you're just showing up like in spaces wearing outfits and like poses and expressions that just don't feel like you. Maybe you aren't maybe you aren't sharing anything about your personal life, and you're just kind of like hiding behind the screen, and whatever that might be, and you're really not going into detail because you're worried someone might not like a certain aspect about you. I think that's probably going to be your biggest issue if you feel misaligned to your personality side of your brand. And then obviously if there's more of kind of like a brand disconnect with your visual, or the market you're in, or your just art in general side of your brand, I think to me that can totally happen. I mean, even for photographers, I think sometimes we can get in these ruts of serving a specific type of client, and then they tell their friends about us, and then their friends tell their friends about, and then you find that, oh shoot, like I am in this niche of photography that I really didn't want to be in, and like these are all lovely people that I'm serving, but like it's not really like fueling me, and I don't feel like it's like my thing anymore. I always use the scapegoat of like the barn wedding, and some people are like, I just hear so many people being like, I'm so sick of barn weddings or whatever.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, that totally makes sense that you might feel that way, and that you might feel, or that you might have like happened into that spot. But I think even then, in those situations, you can navigate out of it by just making a new brand kind of happen for yourself, instead of just waiting for somebody. Like, go out and shoot what you want to shoot, and go out and curate that art that you want to curate. You know, contact that designer that makes your website feel like it's fully embodying you and your energy. You know, maybe like it has to do with kind of learning your editing better, getting like different presets that feel more like you. Maybe it's like getting a new camera or a new type of lens that feels more like you, different type of education or mentorship. But I think it's worth finding that fit in your brand that does feel like you, because it just makes it easier to sell then. It's like once you feel like you can really embody it fully, and is so aligned for you and your energy, I think it's just easier to sell to other people, because you're like, I love this, I believe in it, and I'm so ready to get it in the hands of somebody else.
For sure. Oh my gosh, I love that. And it's just like, it's so true too, because I feel like, especially as photographer, like we're visual creatives and we're visual people,
Yeah.
and it's so easy. And then trends come up, and then it's so easy
Mm-hmm.
for us to be like, oh, well, this is what people are doing these days. This is what
Yeah.
people are drawn to. And I feel like I especially struggle with that, because I, like you were saying, I see all these cool like photo shoots of people, and I'm like, I'm obsessed with them. But if I did them, it would be so out of alignment for me, because it just wouldn't feel.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is so the trend. This is like the marketing trend. This is where things are going. But
Yep.
I don't feel aligned with it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of like in that space of I need to stay true to like who I am and what I do. Because if I
Totally.
tried to do not just so much go to the trends, but like try to do that direction or refresh or anything like that, I don't know if it'd feel aligned. So
Mm-hmm.
it is really, really important to stay alignment. And I always say too, like your editing style too, like does your editing style make sense with your
Mm-hmm.
personality and your,
Mm-hmm.
your branding and all of
It's
that
true.
stuff? And it's almost like everything has to intermix and everything has to click
Yeah.
and go. And I
Absolutely.
think that's where that seems like an overwhelming, like a huge daunting task, because you're like, oh, well, I like this and this and this,
Yeah.
and intermixing it together. And
But I mean, at the end of the day, too, it's like what you're saying just creates this recipe for actually
you.
standing out and for
Mhm.
differentiating yourself from other people. And a lot of people want to smother the parts of themselves that make them different. But it really is sometimes the key that unlocks just really like a very distinct brand that no one else can touch.
Yes, exactly. So it's like embrace those, I guess, is basically what we're
Yes.
saying, right?
Very
Like
true. Yeah,
take it and run
absolutely.
with it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I just feel like you're so good at branding too and intermixing all of those. So I feel like that was just helpful for people to like have an insight on that and stuff too. And then even just the shifts into like 2024. So if like we shift into like marketing and stuff. So say like you have your branding down, you have all of this, you feel kind of good about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then because I think branding like in marketing, they obviously go hand in hand and all of that stuff. So tapping and shifting into marketing, what do you feel like some shifts that you're seeing in the industry are making you realize like, oh, I have to change things the way I'm doing them, or I need to
Mm-hmm.
adjust the strategies I'm doing to adapt to 2024 or to adapt to this new industry shift? Are you personally seeing anything?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think every year I learn more and more about marketing and the different ways to market yourself, what works, what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'll ever get to this place where I have figured it out, right? Where I've just
Yeah.
like figured out all there is to know about marketing. But I do think that there are certain shifts and trends that people gravitate towards in marketing, but not always because they work, but a lot of times just because people find like a shiny new thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that I notice is on the rise these days is paid. advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have found, places like Instagram or Facebook or Pinterest or TikTok to be kind of like what was like the bread and butter of marketing in, maybe like 2018, right? Or even 2020. And I think now what's kind of happening is people are really struggling to figure out algorithms, and they're really struggling to figure out like consistency. And it's like there's certain people that are just showing up really aggressively, and because they're showing up so aggressively, they're seeing big results. And so I think everybody else thinks like, where are my results, right? And what I'm getting all to in this is that a lot of people feel like if they can't figure something out, kind of more like the organic way of marketing, I think people immediately cut to like, well, the way that I can force the hand of marketing in my favor is to just do like paid ads or something like that, whether it's like Meta ads or whether it's Google ads or whether it's like a different type of ad strategy or something like that. So it's very interesting because I feel like I have certain thoughts on like paid advertising, which I think is like, if you can't make it work in organic, I don't think you should be going the paid route, because I think you're only going to know if something works paid if you try it organically first. And so, yeah, I think that's what I see a lot happening is people are really frustrated with like organic marketing right now, and they're not getting the results they want. And so they want to go to paid. Now, I will say, I don't particularly think that paid advertising is necessarily, again, like I said, where people should be going. But I think that's, again, kind of on the rise right now. And it'll be very interesting to see kind of like how that plays its role in the next year or so. And then the second part of kind of like a trend that I see on the rise, and I'd say this is something that I see is maybe more like favorable in a sense, is word of mouth marketing. And people are almost getting back to the whole idea of like, okay, how do I just tell people what I do and get it in their hands? How do I connect with people in person and actually get back to like the basics of what I know about marketing? You know what I mean? Because I think for a minute there, especially after 2020, we got so digital and we thought that our entire world's hinged on the digital. But I think people now are kind of realizing like, hold on a second, it's the personal stuff that really connects so well. So yeah, those are kind of like I feel like they're two opposite sides of the spectrum, but I do feel like that's what I'm noticing. And this isn't like some big sage prediction. It's just like, that's what I'm noticing.
Yeah, no, that's
these days.
exactly it. I'm interrupting my own episode to give you a quick glimpse into my signature coaching program created for established photographers wanting to double to quadruple their prices, book their highest package, and bring in inquiries consistently. This is my high-level container of go-to photographers who are making huge waves in the industry. And the biggest difference in this program is that we get a full 12 months together for deep dive transformation, weekly coaching call support, 4 coaches in the program to deep dive into specific topics, and a content retreat, all included in one program. And I always say, if you can book one extra wedding from your year in the program together, you're going to see your ROI. And it's just the weekly norm wins for my students. So I'm fully confident that you're going to be able to do that and way, way more. And this is an application, phone call, and acceptance process only type of program. So if you are curious if this is the right next steps for you to just blow up your business this year, you can fill out the application at RACHELTRAXLER.com/apply or get the link in the show notes. I'll be in touch shortly after you fill it out so that we can talk through together if this is the right fit for you. I'm very honest with people and I want this to be a great fit for everyone involved. That's just my heart behind the way I do this process. And I also think that's why my students just see so much success in this program. So don't just be an information consumption overload this year. I want you to be an action taker and start implementing change into your business. So again, if this feels aligned to you, fill out the application at RACHELTRAXLER.com/apply to apply for my Passion to Profit coaching program. No, and that's so interesting. I love both of those answers too. And I could not agree more too, like talking about on like the paid ads and stuff like that too. It's like, okay, if you do have a good ad, if you do have that good audience and it reaches a good audience, do you have like that funnel like prepared and ready to bring people in and then to convert too? Because say it does have like a little increase and little bump in people that are coming into your funnel, and then like, is that even converting? And like you said,
Yeah.
I'm also a big believer of like, if things aren't converting for you for free, like advertising and marketing, like, you're just funneling people into a broken system. But
It's so true.
so it's like looking at that, and there's even I don't know, like I'm always adjusting my funnels, even being like, okay, I feel really good about this, put it out. And then I'm like, I come back at the next quarter and be like, this isn't converting as well as I
Yeah.
thought it was going to. Where's my bottleneck? Like what's
Yep.
happening here? And so like
Absolutely.
you have to run and almost test those before you do go run it,
Totally.
paid ads and stuff.
Yeah.
But then even to like the word of mouth referrals, I'm like, yes, it's like, I love client experience and stuff. And it's funny because you know how like styles, like trends come back,
Yeah.
like how you dress, like the 90s are back, or like, oh, that's like,
Uh-huh.
styles come back. It's almost like that's what's happening in marketing. Like just the
Yeah.
classic good old word of mouth networking. It's almost like that's coming back because exactly what you said, Nathan, is that everything has gone so digital. People almost like don't want it. Like Trent and I were literally talking last night. Hazel took my phone and I was like, my first reaction was like, good, she can have it. Like, I don't want it. Like, I'm over, like, I don't even want to be on my phone. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I almost feel like people are getting to a point where we're just so overstimulated digitally
Yeah.
that is actually so powerful. So I'm like, go to the wedding vendor, like go to the venue, like go to these places, meet in person, because you know why? No one else is doing it.
No
It's
one else
marketing
wants to.
networking 101. No one's doing it anymore because everything's so digital. So like, yes, like nothing beats that in-person connection and like relationship
Yep.
building. So I could
Yep.
not agree more with you on that.
I do think the entrepreneur space, I feel it goes kind of through phases, and
Mhm.
it goes through phases when things are easy, and then it goes through like another phase when things get hard.
Yes.
And I think obviously when social media first came out, I think things were really easy for people to market themselves, right? And then even when you have the kind of like a new platform, like for instance, like TikTok come out, or when Reels first came out. And that was right around like that 2020 mark, 2020, 2021. And I think a lot of people saw like a lot of success even at first with like the video marketing. And then I think what happens, well, and even I'm trying to think, I'm not like a big like follow the economy type of person, but I think there was also like in 2021 a little bit of like, oh, like good economy is kind of back now from, because 2020 was so hard, but I think 2021 we're kind of like back now. But then I think what starts happening, and people would say like we're in a recession right now, and these algorithms are overloaded with users, and even a place like TikTok now is very crowded. It's a very crowded space now. And so a lot of these entrepreneurs who I think, oh, I'm going to give you another one, the wedding boom of like 2021 as well, and even 2022 a little bit. And so now we're getting into like 2023, 2024, and a lot of these things have kind of slowed down a little bit. And so you kind of have this phase where the entrepreneurs who maybe had a lot of the things come easy to them, it's either going to make them or break them at a point like this. Because, and again, there's trends for all different types of things, but I think right now I wouldn't say, as I've seen, as I've heard from other entrepreneurs, I don't think anything is like coming so ridiculously easy to the vast majority of entrepreneurs. And so I do think it is a make or break situation for a lot of those people who maybe started and shot up and tried like the easy thing and it worked for them. But I think now we're getting into that place where it's like what did work isn't working anymore, or what worked for you then isn't gonna push you to the new level that you need to get to. And so you're having these moments of crisis for some people, and they're like, what do I do? And I think what's happening is a lot of people are getting back to the raw bare bones basics of business. Like you said, things like shaking hands, things like going up to people in person, things like having a dang good product before you try to sell it. Like all of these types of things that maybe we put on the back burner because we could just blow up on TikTok and make, 6 figures in a year. have kind of gone away a little bit, and now the rubber's meeting the road a little bit. And I don't know if I'm making any sense,
You
but
are. You totally are.
I do think there's a little bit of right now we might be in a little bit of a testing season for a lot of entrepreneurs, and some of this, raw marketing, just no BS marketing is kind of coming back, and I'm okay with it. I
Oh,
think
so am I.
I think it's
Old
good for
school.
us. So
I think it is too, and it's good for like I know even like I'm 31 now, and I know that it's not old, but also the difference between 31 and 21 is a huge gap in the world of like
totally,
digital marketing. It's huge.
yeah,
It is like, and so like things look different, and so things that I built my business on a foundation. People
yeah,
today aren't like their foundation looks different than mine, and so
hmm
it's kind of like people in my bracket were either reverting back or people in that newer bracket are like, oh, this is something I didn't have to do. So now
hmm
I have to also maybe go back and try this. And so
hmm
it's just kind of good for everyone. I think
hmm
like you said, I'm on board. I think it's fun. And
it
I don't
just
know, I
makes
like
us more
the challenge.
resilient.
Yeah. And like you said, kind of makes or breaks. And we go through hard seasons. And heck, what's being an entrepreneur if it comes easy all the time? I feel like that's like,
Exactly.
you gotta,
It's so true.
roll up your sleeves, like we're in it.
Yep,
But
exactly.
it totally is. And even kind of speaking to that, because I know you spoke on it, like talking about it a little bit more, but like just the dip in inquiries. Do
Mm.
you, I'm not looking for like a Nate has the answer, but like in your opinion, do you feel what do you feel like has been the reason for a dip in inquiries for people
Hmm.
as an
Yeah, I've definitely
industry
heard that.
whole?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I I don't love, I guess, telling people some sort of this is why your inquiries are dipping, or
Right.
this is why you should
Yeah.
feel good about that, because I think I always go back to somebody out there can have a dip in inquiries, and maybe even the majority of people can have a dip in inquiries, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to, because I think all our businesses are different, and even all of our stages in business are so different as well, right? So I think, to me, it just depends on, I guess, like where somebody is at, because someone may be in that place where their dip in inquiries could be because they are, I don't know, 10 years in, and maybe they're having to compete with some new photographers on the
Mhm.
block, right? Or maybe their dip in inquiries is because they just completed their first year in photography, and all of those inquiries that did come were maybe from all of their college friends that they graduated with that year. They booked out their year, awesome, but you really never had to learn marketing, did you? So that's why this year maybe you don't have as many inquiries. Or maybe another person is in a situation where their dip in inquiries is because they moved. So there's so many factors. And so I think it's really good to kind of remind ourselves that there's so much that could be what is causing this. And we don't need to kind of ask other people like, hey, what are your inquiries at? Or like, what are your inquiries at? And then use that as the barometer of like, are we okay or are we not okay? I think it's more important to just be like, well, how can I get more? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could be something global as well. Like, we're coming off of the wedding boom of 2021 and 2022. And so things have slowed down a little bit. So yeah, I really couldn't even give you a full answer on why that is, because I think
Yeah.
it's variant for so many people.
Totally. And yeah, and I love that too because it is so different. Like you said, you made such good points too. Like maybe someone just got at that time in their life and they didn't really have to learn marketing because they just got
Yeah.
like word of mouth stuff. And that's
Yeah.
just such a good point too. Like everyone's at complete different stages in their
Yep.
business. Things look different for everyone. I just have noticed or heard people say like as an industry, but it's also like I don't know, I don't know how much of that is just if anything's going on this year, if there's just shifts in the industry that's happening that like marketing strategies that used to work aren't
hmm
anymore or something like that. Or maybe like you were saying earlier, like we just have to work a little harder
Yeah.
at certain
Yeah. I
things
mean,
right now. It just might be like where we're at with that. But that's like such a good point too. But even just moving forward, I guess to 2024, like what do you feel like are a couple things that maybe you would tell someone to prioritize in their marketing if they were trying to have more lead generation or trying to have more visibility? Like, is there anything that you would suggest?
Yeah. I always like to get back to just kind of the mindset of things, because if we were talking about sales, right? Or if we were talking about pricing, or if we were talking about maybe even client experience or something of those natures, I could probably give you like, hey, like do this little hack and you will probably see some results really, really quick. Or, try this little trick, or look at this little strategy or something like that. But I have found, and I know this isn't flashy to say, and I know this isn't something that maybe a lot of people want to hear, but I have found, as I've like studied marketing, read the books, and looked into so many different things, and done so much marketing myself and coached people in marketing, I have just found that when it comes to marketing, there is truly no substitute for your mindset and what mindset you have going into marketing yourself. And I think certain mindsets that have got to be there and are just so important is, number one, your consistency. People think that they have to find the perfect strategy before they begin something or before they continue something. And then they also think that if I do something like a couple times and it doesn't go exactly where I want it to go, then I'm going to abandon it. But I think that if you can stay consistent with, I mean, this may come with some nuances, but almost like if you can stay consistent with any marketing strategy you try, or with any marketing platform you go with, if you can stay ridiculously consistent, and then also I'd say if you can have a very high volume of what you do, I don't think you can lose. I really don't, because the average person doesn't stay consistent, and the average person doesn't put in a high volume of reps of whatever it is, and that's why they don't see any result of that. But the people who are out there, who you see getting those big results, and then not only getting those results once, but getting them multiple times over the course of like months to years, those are the people that just stay consistent with it and do it a lot. And so it really doesn't matter what it is. If someone, like, I've heard people booking out their entire year from just posting in Facebook groups. I've heard people booking out their entire year just from vendor networking. I've heard people booking out their year just from like posting on TikTok. It doesn't really matter necessarily what that marketing strategy is. And I would recommend you have a few, not just one. But if you can stay consistent with it, and if you can find your strategy, that's all good. And like, I think that's great. And I teach a lot of strategy, but even if you're at a place where you haven't figured out all the perfect strategy yet, just do the work, just do the reps, just like keep going. Because the best effort you can give on day one is always going to be better than not doing anything on day one. Like if you wait until day 100 to start because you don't have the perfect strategy until day 100, well, you just missed 99 days of doing it, like, not perfect, but you did something. And I guarantee you're always going to be further. You're going to have way more of a head start just doing something than you would if you just waited around for the perfect strategy or your perfect approach to whatever it is. So I think that's like starter pack, ground zero. This is what you got to start with mindset wise. Just get out there and do the work, do the reps, put them in, stay consistent and have a high volume. And then we can talk about about strategy, but you got to start there.
We love it. We love just the groundwork, baby steps, first step. What action can I take? We love it. It's being an entrepreneur too. It's almost like we have to accept that we just can't be afraid to fail because we're going to. So you just can't be, you have to kind of just not think about it and just say, almost tell yourself like, hey, I'm going to fail. I don't know when or what but I'm going to. And like, who cares? Because like, that's how you're just that's how that, like you said, those 99 days of failing and trying things, that's what's going to make day 100 like way better than just
Exactly.
starting there. So
I always tell people, do something long enough so that you have context when you learn the tactic or strategy. But if you've never even done something, you're going to be learning from like maybe like a coach or whatever, and you're not going to have context for it. And I know, like, I mean, Rachel, you have a podcast, you interview a lot of entrepreneurs. So I'm sure, I just noticed on my podcast, I'll interview so many entrepreneurs, and my first question will be like, so how did you get started? And like, what did you first do? And I can't remember a single entrepreneur who is like wildly successful who tells me, oh yeah, like on day one, I had this perfect strategy and this
had
is
it all
exactly how I
together.
did it. Yeah, I had it all together and I just stuck with this strategy and boom, it happened. Like every time I hear from people, they're all like, yeah, I was doing like the weirdest crap ever to start my business and it worked because I just kept doing it.
Yeah.
And then over time I learned strategy, and you know what I mean? Or people
Yeah.
just getting scrappy. And I had an interview with Stephanie Fisher. Her brand name is like From the Daisies. And she was like,
Yes.
when I moved, she said she moved to, I forgot what state it was, but some state. And she's like, I knew I needed content out in that state. And so she's like, me and my husband just like dressed up in wedding attire and I took self-portraits as a styled shoot. Like just so freaking scrappy, right? And someone could be like,
Yes.
oh, well, that's not perfect. You should have gotten with like the perfect planner, and you should have gotten with like the perfect model couple and been really well connected with the best venue and all. And I'm like, yes, she could have, and it probably would have had higher impact, but she just did what she knew, and she did what was like the lowest hanging fruit to start. And you know what? I'm pretty sure she booked a ton of people off of that. And yeah, she probably put together another styled shoot that was perfect after that, but she just started. You know what I'm saying? Like there wasn't any like perfect thing. And I just hear that over and over and over again. And so when I hear entrepreneurs or photographers and they're just like, I can't start because I need the perfect strategy, I'm like, oh man, we got to get you just started though. We just have to get you
Yes.
scrappy before you get all perfect about everything.
Yeah, it's just like, just work with what you got.
Yeah,
Just,
exactly.
and I'm just such a done is better than perfect person anyway.
Yeah.
Now, my husband, Trent, he might say otherwise because he's a perfectionist. He's the perfectionist. I am the done is better than perfect.
Hey, it's good. You guys balance each other out.
It's a balance. But it's so true. Just like, and yeah, and it's fun. What's really cool too about entrepreneurs is that, like you said, that you could be doing this for 10 years. You could be doing this for 6 months, and it doesn't matter. Like everyone grows at different paces.
Yeah.
And so that's where like, just do what, like she did a style shoot for herself. Like just do the best with what you can, with what you have. And you never know the rate of that you're going to grow at. So
The
just,
doors that will
gotta do it.
open, the
Yes,
things you'll
exactly.
learn. I think as well, there's so much learning to be had in doing,
Mhm.
much more than there is in just consuming. We are so fixated on like, what is the next, TikTok that I'm going to see that's going to give me the 3 tips? What is the next like coach I can hire? What is the next course? And all these different things. And don't get me wrong, I think there is such a time and a place for those things. I sell those things. I believe in those things every bit. But at the end of the day, you have to be doing as well, because there is a dimension where you out in the trenches of whatever it is you're doing, you will learn so much because you're just out there doing, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you go out and you hop on, I don't know, 20 consult calls with clients, and you're going to learn more from those 20 consult calls than you can from just like 1 hour long, education session that somebody gave you. You know what I'm saying? So I think it just goes back to like, do what you can with what you've got, and supplement, yes, the strategy and the experts in there as much as you possibly can, but don't just stop before don't stop before you start, honestly.
Don't do it to yourself. Oh, that's awesome too. Is there kind of just like one last piece of advice that you want to end it on?
Sure. I think a big piece of advice that I would give to people is, don't let what would I say, the time horizon between you and your goal or success, don't let that be the reason you don't do something. I oftentimes I kind of tell people, like, for instance, like in my coaching program, I tell people when we first start everything, I say, if you getting to your goal, let's say it's like 6 figures or something like that. If you getting to your goal took you, I don't know, 1 month, 2 months, something like that, you would probably say, awesome, I am so in for it. Like, let's absolutely do it. But what if I said, hey, you're going to hit this goal, but you're not going to hit it for a year, for a year. You know what I mean? Would that be too long for you? Would you say, oh, I only want the success, I only want to reach my goal if it happens within my specific, like, tiny little time horizon and that immediate gratification? Or are you going to say, you know what? If I know I can get there, I will do whatever it takes for as long as it takes. And so I guess I would say, in our internet culture where, people tell you you can make like this whole like 6 figures in like, 6 hours type culture that we have, which is like so pukey to me.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing I can tell so many entrepreneurs for the long haul and for being a lasting entrepreneur is, do what it takes, not so that you can get the immediate gratification goal, but do what it takes so that you can just get the goal, and don't put a time horizon on it. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously you definitely want to push yourself so that you can get places as quick as possible, but don't make that the only reason you're going to do it, right? Is that it just happens quick. Like, no, like that's so cheap, that's so shallow, and that's not doing you and your life, which, by the way, life is a freaking long time. That's not doing you any good by saying those types of things, because it basically makes the likelihood of you ever reaching a goal so slim, because you've put this tiny little restriction and constraint on it of saying it has to be done within this time frame. So just don't put the time frame on it. Don't put the restriction on it. Just say, I'm going to do this as long as it takes. And one day you will get there and you'll be so happy that you stuck with it.
That is so good, Nate. And I feel like we all need to hear that, because we all live in a world of, just like you said, instant gratification. We
Yeah.
want it now, and it's only getting worse. Like
Yeah.
that time span is getting shorter and shorter. So
Yep.
that's such good advice that we all need that reminder. So I love that. I love ending on that high note. I love it. Thank you so much, Nate, for coming on. Why don't you tell
Absolutely.
everybody where we can find you?
Yeah, I would just say, come hang out at my podcast, Passion with Purpose. We talk about a lot of the things that Rachel talks about on her podcast, I'm sure. A lot of business, a lot of mindset, a lot of how to make you more money. So yeah, that's where I'd point you. You could follow me on Instagram as well, at Nathan Chanski. So yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much, Nate. It was so fun.
Thanks so much for having me.